Hi there, I'm Darlene. My dad invited me to our big fancy family reunion, then told me to sit at the kids' table. At first, I thought it was just a weird oversight, but then came the cake with my dad's ex-wife on it, the speeches I wasn't in, the legacy wall where I didn't exist, and the email that said I was just a loose end. They smiled in public while erasing me in private, and now I'm wondering, how long have they been planning this? How many times did I smile through being sidelined? What else don't I know? The house looked the same, but I didn't. As I stepped out of the Uber and onto my parents' wraparound porch, the Charleston air felt heavier than I remembered. Spanish moss dangled from the oaks like lazy judgments, and even the scent of blooming gardenias couldn't ease the tightness in my chest. I'd flown in from Chicago that morning, early flight, no checked bag, just a carry-on with 2 dresses and enough anxiety to last the weekend. They called it Southern charm. I called it selective politeness. Inside, the usual chaos. Laughter in the kitchen, wine glasses clinking, kids screaming in the backyard. Roast beef and cinnamon candles filled the air. Mom's signature mix of warmth and quiet control. Upstairs, I pulled on the navy off-shoulder dress I knew she'd disapprove of. The text came just as I zipped it up. Next time, wear something less open. You're not on a date. I typed, "Sure, Mom," then deleted it. No point. Downstairs, Jolene posed with Dad for a photo. Kenneth hovered nearby, plate of sliders in hand, smiling that smug, I never left grin. I knew what it meant. Same look every year since I turned 25 and showed up solo. "Darlene," Dad called, "your seat's over there, with the little ones. We ran out of space at the big table." I stared. The kids' table? He pointed to a plastic folding table by the fence, paper plates, juice boxes, and a place card that read D with a smiley face. A 9-year-old was already wrist-deep in macaroni. No one else reacted. Kenneth sipped his drink. Jolene shrugged. I walked over, sat on the plastic chair that squeaked with every shift. My knees nearly hit my chin. The kids didn't even look up. They were too busy trading stickers. Mom floated by, tray in hand. "We figured you'd be more comfortable here," she said, smiling like it was thoughtful. Comfortable? Right. I smiled back. I always did. They thought being the youngest meant I didn't mind, that I'd take whatever seat was left and be grateful. It didn't matter that I lived alone in Chicago, managed a team, paid my own bills. To them, I was still the girl who once choked on a marble. I stabbed at some carrots. Wasn't hungry. The wind lifted the tablecloth and brushed my legs. I watched it flutter and thought, maybe that's all I am to them, decoration. Easy to overlook. Background filler in the perfect family portrait. I thought that was rock bottom. Then they brought out dessert. Just as I was about to escape to the bathroom for a quiet 20 minutes, Loretta's voice cut through the chatter from the patio. "Dessert time, everyone. Come grab your slice. Custom made, just for you." Of course it was. Servers wove through the crowd, each tray holding slices of cake topped with glossy, edible photos. Dad's had an Old Navy picture. Jolene's showed her engagement. Kenneth in that hideous seersucker suit. Kenneth's slice? A proud moment from his law firm's launch. For a second, I let myself hope. Maybe mine would show the day I got my condo in Lincoln Park, or my first book cover. Nothing flashy, just something that said, "You matter too." Then I looked down. Someone had already set my plate in front of me. It was a wedding photo, but not mine. It was Evelyn and Kenneth, her in that pearl-detailed dress I used to love. The arbor they'd married under, right here, in this house. Underneath, one unforgettable day. My stomach dropped. Kenneth chuckled, loud enough for the crowd. "Oops, wrong file. Still a great memory, though, right?" Laughter followed. Of course it did. Even Mom smirked behind her hand. Loretta leaned in, napkin in hand. "Well, it was a beautiful wedding. Shame how that turned out." I didn't speak, just stared at the cake like it had hit me. It wasn't a mistake. It never was. These things were always on purpose. No one looked shocked, just amused. I picked up my fork, set it down. My hand shook, so I tucked it into my lap. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. Then Madison, teenage quietly observant Madison, sat beside me. She chewed slowly, leaned over and whispered, "Aunt Evelyn told me she stopped coming 'cause no one ever let her talk. Said it was always the same story. Same table. Same silence. I looked at her. She meant it. And I realized Evelyn hadn't disappeared. She'd escaped. I pressed my napkin to my lips, nodding, too full of emotion to speak. Everything around me was a blur of noise, like I'd been dropped underwater. They expected me to laugh it off. Again. Pretend it didn't matter. Again. But I wasn't 15 anymore. And I wasn't afraid of being called dramatic. I remembered suddenly the first time I was told to be quiet, when I hadn't done anything wrong. The scent of buttercream still clung to the back of my throat as I stepped away from the party. I didn't say a word, just walked out of the backyard, past the hydrangeas, toward the gravel path that led to the side gate. I needed air that didn't smell like nostalgia dressed in mockery. As soon as I reached the garden bench beneath the old magnolia tree, a memory came rushing in, uninvited but sharp as glass. I was 11. It was a sticky summer afternoon, and the whole family was outside for one of those cookouts Dad insisted on throwing. Jolene and I had been playing near the driveway when we heard the crunch. Someone, definitely not me, had knocked over Dad's prized Weber grill into the side of his classic Buick. A long scrape glinted along the rear door. Jolene froze. Then her lips started trembling, tears welling up on cue like she had rehearsed it. "She didn't listen," she sobbed, pointing at me. "I told her to stay away from the car." Walter stormed over, eyes narrowing at the dent like it had insulted him personally. "Darlene," he barked, "how could you be so careless?" I was too stunned to defend myself. No one asked what really happened. My mother knelt beside Jolene and wiped her tears. "She didn't mean to," she whispered, then turned to me and added, "Let it go. You're stronger. She's delicate." That sentence has stayed with me for 20 years, like a tattoo on my ribs no one else could see. I sat on the bench now, fingers curling around the edge, grounding myself. The voices behind me faded as I unlocked my phone and scrolled through old messages. I stopped on one I hadn't opened in years. Evelyn. A text from 3 years ago. I'd kept it, though I never replied. "You're not crazy. They just hate mirrors." Reading it now felt like flipping on a light in a room I'd been stumbling through. Evelyn didn't vanish after the divorce. She left because her voice had been buried under politeness and pressure. She'd once tried to speak, and they shut her out. Same way they were doing to me now. It wasn't about fitting in. It was about not disturbing the fantasy. Their version of family needed quiet women and clean stories. I tried so hard not to rock the boat, smiling through the subtle digs, laughing when I was the punchline, keeping the peace that was never meant for me. But the truth was, they didn't want peace. They wanted silence. They called it helping. I called it exile. And I wasn't going to sit in exile quietly anymore. The laughter behind me kept rolling, like waves against a rock that was finally starting to crack. I brushed off my dress and walked back toward the crowd, slower this time, letting the noise fold over me. I'd missed the toast, apparently. Fine. No one had asked me to speak anyway. Just as I reached the edge of the patio, Jolene intercepted me with that sugary smile she wore when she wanted something. "Hey, Dar," she said, swinging a baby monitor into my hand like it was a party favor. "Can you keep an eye on the kids for a bit? Mom needs help with the speeches." Loretta appeared from nowhere, voice syrupy sweet. "You're always so good with the little ones. This would really help us out." Before I could answer, Walter glanced in our direction. He didn't say a word. Just gave a brief nod. The kind that wasn't a request. It was a closing statement. So there I was again, back at the fold-up table with sticky cups and crushed juice boxes. The older kids were trading YouTube jokes I didn't understand, and the toddlers were wailing over plastic blocks. I wasn't even watching them. I was watching the adults rehearse their speeches near the pergola, each of them with a neatly printed note card. Kenneth going over bullet points, Jolene adjusting her dress. Even Loretta had a few lines. No one had given me a card. No one had even asked if I wanted one. I wasn't part of the celebration. I was part of the childcare. I sat there, holding the monitor like a leash, and wondered how many more times they expected me to trade dignity for the illusion of being helpful. This wasn't kindness. This was choreography, and I was the stagehand who never got a bow. From across the lawn, I saw Madison watching me. She raised an eyebrow, then pulled out her phone. I took that as a cue and texted, "Want to sneak out for ice cream later?" Her reply came instantly. "God, yes. I already hate everyone." I smiled for the first time all evening, but it was the kind of smile that pulled tight at the corners and never reached my eyes. I looked down at the baby monitor. The static buzzed softly, like a reminder of everything I was expected to absorb without complaint. The more I said yes, the less they saw me. My silence wasn't peacekeeping, it was self-erasure. That wasn't loyalty. That was obedience, and I had obeyed enough. But before I could escape that yard, my father decided to remind me who the head of the family was. He waited until the crowd had thinned out a bit, until the plates were cleared and the wine was flowing freely. Then he motioned to me with 2 fingers, like I was still 10 and about to be scolded for tracking mud inside. We stepped to the side of the porch near the lattice, where the string lights didn't quite reach. "I know you're a little off today," he started, voice smooth like a worn sermon. "But this reunion's important, to your mother, to everyone. So do me a favor, don't make it about you. Let's keep things pretty, for once. Pretty, not honest, not fair, just clean and quiet and wrapped with a bow." I didn't answer right away. I looked at the yard, at Kenneth being handed a mic, at Loretta fixing her lipstick in a compact, at the nieces and nephews being lined up for pictures they'd forget by morning. Then I looked at him. "Pretty doesn't fix broken," I said evenly. "Maybe that's the real problem." He blinked, just once, not used to hearing anything that didn't echo his own words back at him. I walked away before he could respond. Not fast, not storming, just done. My hands weren't shaking this time. I found a quiet corner near the patio lights and sat on a low stone wall. The music had shifted to something light and vintage. Frank Sinatra, or one of those safe choices people put on when they want the atmosphere to feel timeless. Madison joined me a minute later, holding 2 glasses of sweet tea. "You know," she said, sitting beside me, "you're the only adult here who ever says what's actually going on." I let out something between a laugh and a sigh. "And look how well that's going for me." She nudged my arm. "Maybe the truth's too heavy for them, so they dump it on you." Her words cut in a soft, honest way, the kind you don't flinch from because they fit too well. I pulled out my phone, opened the Notes app. I didn't know what I was writing at first. Maybe nothing anyone would read. But I started anyway. Lines, fragments, a beginning. Not a speech, a record. I didn't want to yell. I wanted to be heard. They erased my name from their stories, so I wrote one they couldn't delete. I followed the crowd toward the east wing of the house, where they'd set up the so-called Legacy Display Hall. It was meant to be the sentimental centerpiece of the evening, a curated tribute to our family milestones. Photos in expensive frames lined the walls: Kenneth's law school graduation, Jolene cutting a ribbon at some charity gala, a blown-up snapshot of Walter and Loretta renewing their vows in Bermuda. On a screen looped a slideshow, each image accompanied by soft piano music. It was subtle, polished, cold. I searched for something, anything with my name on it. A single frame, a blurry corner of a group photo. But it was like I'd never been born. Not the picture of me receiving my master's, not the book signing Mom said she was too tired to fly in for, not even the volunteer project I led that got picked up by the local news. And Evelyn? She was still there, smiling beside Kenneth in their wedding photo. Still part of the story, I guess, so long as her role didn't disturb the family script. I whispered to myself, I didn't disappear, they just cropped me out. As I turned to leave, Aunt May, one of the few left with any softness in her, caught my wrist. "Sweetheart," she said gently, eyes flicking around before she leaned in. "Walter's leaving everything to Kenneth. House, business, even the land by the lake. He's been planning it for years. Thought you should know." I didn't blink, didn't flinch. The truth didn't hit me like a punch. It felt like a confirmation, one I'd already swallowed without realizing. "So the wall was just the first step," I said flatly. She gave me a sad little smile. "He thinks it's best. Says you've made your own way." Made my own way, as if that excused erasing me entirely. Later, during cocktail hour, I stood at the edge of the lawn and watched my family laugh at a story Kenneth was telling. I didn't hear the joke, but I knew the rhythm. He'd always been good at telling the kind that made him the hero and everyone else the grateful chorus. There was an open mic for family reflections. Jolene had gone first, naturally. Then Loretta. Then Madison's younger brother. Everyone thanked each other, toasted tradition, praised legacy. I walked up. Someone said my name, soft, surprised. I took a breath. I noticed my name's not on the wall, or in the slideshow, or in any of the speeches, and that's okay, because I'm still here, and I'm not invisible just because some of you find me inconvenient. There was a pause, sharp and sudden. Walter's jaw locked. Jolene smirked without showing teeth. I stepped down, didn't wait for applause, but I got it. A few cousins, tentative at first, clapped, then silence, then glasses clinking again. I didn't need applause. I needed them to hear it, before I stopped being quiet for good. As I slipped away from the patio crowd, my phone buzzed with a notification. Habit made me check it. A new email. Subject line blank. It was from my father, a forwarded thread. I shouldn't have been CC'd, but I was. There, in crisp black text, was the line that flipped the night on its head. She's always been a loose end. Don't let her ruin tonight. Walter had written that, to Kenneth, and Jolene. I stared at the screen. For a full minute I couldn't even blink. I read it twice, 3 times, then smiled. Not the kind of smile you give when something's funny. The kind you give when the blade finally turns up out of the water. At least now I had it in writing. I slid the phone into my clutch, then turned, only to find my cousin Nora wide-eyed and whispering. "You kind of went viral in the group chat," she murmured, biting her lip. I blinked. "What?" She showed me her phone, a TikTok posted by Jolene's alt account, a 30-second clip, me at the mic. Except it was cut and cropped to look like a tantrum. The caption? "Every family has that one dramatic cousin, hundreds of likes. Comments full of crying, laughing emojis?" Someone tagged me. Someone else said, "There she goes again." My hands shook, but not from embarrassment, from rage. I found Jolene near the cocktail bar, laughing with Kenneth like she hadn't just gut-punched me online. I didn't wait. I stepped straight up. "You wanted a performance?" I said. "Let me give you the real one." She turned, eyes narrowing. "You should really calm down." "No," I said, sharp as glass. "You've used your influencer sparkle to rewrite this family's truth for years. You crop, you edit, you spin, and when someone refuses to play along, you label them a problem." She scoffed. "That's why no one listens to you." I leaned in, low and steady. "No, it's why I'm the only one you're afraid to hear." People around us froze. The air thickened. Jolene's smile cracked, then vanished. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I just walked away. And if they wanted silence again, they'd have to earn it, because I was done giving it away for free. I left the patio without looking back. The cicadas buzzed like static in my ears as I crossed the gravel path toward my rental car. The air was thick with heat and judgment, but for the first time, neither touched me. Inside the car, I sat in the dark for a moment. I let the weight of the night rest on my shoulders, and then I rolled it off. I opened the family group chat. My fingers didn't tremble this time. I uploaded 3 files into a shared drive and pasted the link with a short message. "You called me a problem. Here's the proof I've been your scapegoat." I hit send. Included Walter's email, the cropped TikTok video, a snapshot of the legacy wall, one where my name should have been. My achievements weren't forgotten. They were deleted. The responses came in like fireworks. Pings, chimes, names lighting up. One cousin? "This explains a lot." Another. "Darlene, I'm so sorry." Loretta called. I let it ring. Then Kenneth messaged, "You're blowing this way out of proportion." And Jolene, predictably, "Nice try making yourself the victim again." I typed back, calm and direct. "No, I'm just done being quiet while you perform perfection." I stared at the screen until their names faded from the top of my phone. Then I opened a separate message to my father. "You erased me once. I'm making sure you remember me now, not for your shame, but for the truth you tried to bury." I didn't wait for a reply. I left the car running, deleted the group chat from my phone, and booked my flight back to Chicago for the next morning. As I drove down the long oak-lined driveway, windows down, I breathed deep. It smelled like wet earth and something else I hadn't felt in years. Freedom. They didn't lose a daughter. They lost their silence. I still had my voice, and I was just getting started. The flight home was quiet. No one waiting at baggage claim, no drama trailing me through the terminal. Just me, the sound of rolling wheels, and a calm I hadn't known in years. When I stepped into my apartment, I didn't turn on the TV or check my inbox. I poured a glass of water, sat cross-legged on the couch, and let myself be still. This silence? It didn't sting. It soothed. Later that night, I opened my journal, the one I hadn't touched since before the reunion. The pages smelled dusty, unused. I wrote slowly, like testing a voice that had gone hoarse from disuse. I wasn't broken. I was buried. Now I'm blooming. Alone, maybe, but alive. The next morning, news trickled in. Madison texted first. Grandpa had a stroke. Jolene's the only one at the hospital. Then a cousin. She lost that skincare deal. The TikTok fallout hit harder than she expected. Another cousin chimed in privately. Thank you for saying what we never could. You weren't the only one they tried to shrink. I didn't reply, but I read each word twice. The family group chat split. Some stayed loyal to the image. Some quietly reached out. And some, like me, decided not to play along anymore. A few days later, a package arrived. No return address, just a soft pink envelope. Inside was a folded piece of paper. Hand-drawn crayon lines, crooked but earnest. A dinner table, everyone seated. At the head, me. In little handwriting. Everyone's listening this time. Madison. Tears came in waves, slow and warm. I held the card like it could anchor me to something that mattered. Not perfection. Not approval. Just being seen. Maybe she'll grow up knowing that the truth matters more than the show. Maybe she already does. I pinned her drawing on my fridge. Next to an old photo of my college graduation, one my father never hung, but I always kept. I didn't need a seat at their table anymore. I built my own. And the people who matter, they'll find it. No performances, no silence, just truth. Maybe your family doesn't throw fancy reunion parties in Charleston. Maybe it's just a Thanksgiving dinner where your voice gets talked over, or a phone call that ends with more guilt than warmth. But if any part of my story felt familiar to you, I want you to hear this. Silence isn't always peace. Sometimes it's just fear wearing a polite face. I spent years thinking that keeping the family happy meant shrinking myself. I thought if I worked hard enough, smiled long enough, I'd earn a seat where I was seen, not just tolerated. But the truth is, you don't have to earn basic respect. You don't have to earn the right to exist fully, honestly, loudly. If they only love the quiet version of you, the edited version, then they don't truly love you. And listen, healing doesn't always come from reconciliation. Sometimes, healing means choosing yourself, walking away, planting your own table and saying, I matter, with or without your invitation. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been the quiet one in the room? The person everyone expected to just keep the peace? Tell me in the comments. Drop a 1 if this story spoke to you, or let me know where in the world you're watching from. And hey, if this video made you feel seen, inspired, or even just understood for a moment, I'd be honored if you hit subscribe. There are more stories to tell, and I'd love to have you with me when we tell them.